You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Grant Little, CEO at Precedent. Precedent is a faster and smarter way to handle PI claims. Precedent reduces administrative tasks, eliminates endless back and forth with insurance, and minimizes stalemates. This saves insurance carriers, law firms money, reducing errors, and helps both parties work more efficiently, ensuring a fair and reasonable settlement outcomes. PI attorneys, Grant knows what insurance companies want. This is going to be a very exciting episode because we're all out there dealing with insurance company. If you're a PI lawyer, and Grant can tell you straight up what they want, what they're looking for. Grant, how are you? Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Benny. I appreciate being here. I'm doing great.
For sure. I just want to give a quick shout out to Brianna from your team who kindly gave me a demo. She's been to our Miami event. Really nice person, and she represents Precedent really well at the Lawyer Stories events. And so thank you. Your team's been very kind through this whole process.
Yeah, Bree's fantastic.
Awesome. So first of all, I want to say, like, Precedent's like such a cool name. Like, I always loved the name Precedent. Like, even when I was in law school, I always thought, like, is there a company named Precedent? And like that would be like probably a cool name for a company. So here we are. Tell us about yourself, Grant. Where are you from? And how about a little like personal background about like your favorite or best your first concert that you went to? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So I was born in Alabama and went to school at Auburn and studied computer science and economics. So, but I grew up primarily in Atlanta, and first concert, I think I was about 8 years old. My mom took me to see Whitesnake.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think I met some of those guys at a bar in New Haven after a softball game. I swear one of these guys came up to me. He's like, I'm in Whitesnake. I got a picture on Facebook somewhere. That's wicked cool. Like, is that once bitten, twice? No, is that Whitesnake?
That's Great White.
That's Great White. Whitesnake is shit.
Here I go again. How can I forget that? That's like an epic karaoke tune. But all right, we'll save that. We'll save that for another evening out with Precedent. All right. So you're like a guru in the insurance industry. So anybody in the PI industry who's out there who needs somebody to break down insurance, I believe that Grant is your guy. Like, you've come up with this incredible program that I've read about, and it involves AI. Obviously, that's very cutting edge. Tell us a little bit of background about your experience in the insurance industry. You started as a claim analyst, right? Yeah. So prior to founding Precedent, I've worked in property and casualty insurance for 20 years at a handful of different carriers: AIG, Farmers, National General, Allstate. So it was across a lot of different product lines and standard, preferred, non-standard. So I've seen a lot of different types of claims and claims organizations. I've always focused on claims technology and analytics. And around 2014, I really got into artificial intelligence and started creating solutions for the claims departments, like virtual inspection, chat assist. My last role, I was the chief technology officer at National General for the last 10 years. And they were acquired by Allstate, and I stayed on as the chief information officer for a bit. And then the idea for Precedent just kept kind of nipping at me, and I wanted to start it.
Yeah, actually, that's great because that was my next question. Great segue. Like, what gave you the idea for precedent, especially with the, well, I guess you were sort of in the legal world with claims.
Yeah. So the idea for precedent really dates back over 20 years to 2003 because this problem has been going on for that long. So in 2003, I was a claims analyst. Back then, my day-to-day revolved around querying databases, extracting data out of mainframes, cobbling data together to create analytical reports for claims. One area that was a constant struggle was understanding why average injury settlements would go up or down. In insurance, refer to average settlements as average paids or severity. But the problem was the most critical information was buried in unstructured formats, documents, adjuster notes, correspondence, and text mining, back then was still in its infancy. So insights were really limited, but there was one pattern that was really clear. Once a claimant got an attorney involved, the cost of the claim skyrocketed. Wow. And about that time, about 35% of claimants that were injured would go get an attorney. And attorney rep settlements were about 5 times higher than a normal non-rep claim. And then the 10% thereabouts that went into litigation were roughly 10 times more costly. So even though attorney involvement was only about a third of claims, it consumed the vast majority of the total claim injury dollars paid. And this caused insurance companies to start pouring resources into early intervention programs, trying to figure out how to build better rapport with injured claimants, offering cash out programs to avoid attorney involvement. But if we're being honest and we look over the past 20 years, they've lost. Today, depending on the jurisdiction, 60 to 70% of claimants go straight to a plaintiff attorney. They don't even give the insurance company a chance.
Right.
It's just a different world. And that's what really bred the idea is that the way that these two collaborate is Stone Age.
Right.
And while plaintiff firms and insurance companies are on the opposite side of the table, they're stuck working together.
So when you say Stone, I want to stop right there. Like when you say Stone Age, do you mean, and based on what you said, do you mean they're just so far apart? I mean, because no, you don't, because you got these, when you're represented by an attorney, you say they, the claimant dollars out go much higher than if they're not represented, right?
Yeah. And really what I'm talking about the Stone Age is it's all analog types of things.
Gotcha.
It hasn't changed in over 30 years. We're still dealing with faxes, email chains, PDFs, mail, phone tag, disorganized information dumps.
Okay.
There's no standardization of this.
You're talking about the communication with the
communication in between the two.
Right.
And why is that important to everybody? Because the costs are higher on both sides. This is more costly for everybody to do this. Settlements are really protracted. They take much longer than they should. And this hurts the people they represent. For plaintiff firms, their clients are being hurt by this.
Yep.
And for an insurance company, their insureds. And there's just no reason that it should be this way. If in 100 years from now, we're still faxing demands over, something has gone horribly wrong. Obviously,
how do fax machines still even exist? That's crazy.
I can tell you there is a large carrier that almost exclusively receives faxes for demands.
That's crazy.
And
wow.
And there is a reason for that. A lot of these demands are 500, 1,000, 1,500 pages. They have images. And so when you try to send them through email, they fail. They're too large for you. And so, we have to revert to faxes.
Some faxes go to the email though too, right? Like you can do. There's some.
They do, but the challenge with that is faxes is a legacy technology that has a lot of failure points in it. So it's tough to know whether a fax went fully through. You may get a success, and it's a 300-page document, and they got the first 200 pages.
Right.
And so you won't find that out, or a plaintiff firm won't find that out maybe till 2 weeks later that they don't have the entire domain. And then you're starting from zero.
And then so Precedent comes in, and
Yeah.
so how has Precedent evolved? Like how did you start it up? Like how did you grow it? Like what was the simple
Sure.
idea? Like you were like, okay, well, fax is so antiquated, it's the Stone Age. The communication so often. I've seen this because I've been in insurance for so long.
Yeah. So I took, like, we've talked with insurance carriers, and just here's an example of a very basic problem that every law firm and every insurance carrier has: sending a demand over.
Right.
Today, when they send over, depending on the firm and carrier, it might be emailed, it might be faxed, it might be physically mailed. And believe it or not, sometimes all three at once. And so this level of just blasting it
Right.
out
Right.
has forced insurance carriers to build demand identification teams whose entire job is to find demands and route them to the right people.
Wow.
Um, I mean, that doesn't scale. It's wasteful and it's got tons of errors in it. So at Precedent, we work directly with the carriers to create digital intake and triage pipelines. We standardize the metadata around the demand itself. We give structured documents, we give structured data, and carriers can assign it the same day. They begin the review process immediately. And that's how we're turning something that is normally like a 6-week process to get offers back in and everything down to like a 6-day process.
Right.
And we guarantee firms that send demands through Precedent are going to get offers back faster, and they're going to get better first offers back.
Right.
Because prior to that, we help the law firm create the demand in a way that is going to resonate with an insurance carrier.
So in my intro, I stated that what insurance companies want. Like we're talking about the demand, and you're saying like how it could go. People just blast it out. Like it could go to them X, Y, and Z way, and they've created special positions just to like track down the demand. Like what do insurance companies like look for in a demand? Like what about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, and let me just bust a myth like right off the bat.
Yeah.
More pages does not mean more impact.
Sure.
And so, what carriers really want is, one, consistent delivery. And then in the demand, they want organization. There are some firms and I've seen them. I mean, at this point, I've seen over 100,000 demands. I probably have passed my eyeballs. And
Wow.
some firms, you will see like they got a deck of cards and they shuffled them up and then just threw them over the fence and said, "You go figure it out." And that is not helpful. It will not get your demand work fast. It will not necessarily yield you a good offer, because you've made it illogical, and you're first pressing all the work back on them. So they want organization where it's indexed in a way that they can find things quickly. They want completeness. Every bill, every record, every lien, don't leave things out. And they want credibility in the demand, not a bunch of fluff. Stick to provable, documented facts and clarity. A focused argument, not legal theater.
Right.
In Precedent, we have a product that's called Composer, and we spend a lot of time making sure that we nail all 5 of those so that you get faster responses and start the negotiation more quickly with better offers coming in because they're more credible demands.
Right. And so when the insurance company sees something coming in from Precedent, like what is their first thought? Like what do you think like this is going to be complete and this is the whole universe of it?
We speak with the adjusters. I mean, every single day we are talking with adjusters, and we have feedback from the adjusters where we've had adjusters say we look forward to Precedent demands.
Yeah.
Because they're much faster to work. They're getting more data with Precedent demands. So the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive from the carriers from what we receive, from what we send. And they know that we don't do things in our demands. I mean, there's some common mistakes that I see firms make. And I think they do it with good intentions, but verbosity hurts the demand. Having long-winded, overwritten demands are harder to process, and quite honestly, they can signal a weakness in your case. Because it looks like you're compensating.
Right.
So keep it sharp. The strength of your case should speak through the evidence, not excess language. And this is kind of a pet peeve of mine because I've seen so much of it and heard so much about it. Putting jury verdicts in a pre-suit demand, it doesn't do anything. Pre-suit adjusters don't care about the verdicts. Each case is too specific to draw any kind of parallels. Plus, a lot of these big verdicts are often inflated because of bad faith penalties, and they're not comparable for anything that's pre-litigation. So again, it can give the indication that you're compensating for your case and you don't feel strong enough about the merits of your case on their own. So, I know there's a lot of industry talk, but that's like, standard. I can just tell you from an insurance perspective, it doesn't move the needle at all.
Right. So going back to like the demands, like how do you strike a balance between advocating for your client and creating a demand that insurance companies are going to respond positively to?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely mean that you should advocate for your client. But I think there's a better way to do that. Number one, you should establish liability early and lay it out very clearly. Number two, the damages should be in an index format that's well organized with clear supporting evidence so that it looks as though, and you've done the work to show that you've organized this and put it together and made it credible. Describe the claimant's lifestyle and their impact and connect the facts to the human, because that does make a big difference. And I'm going to say finally, deliver it through a partner like Precedent that guarantees that you're going to get timely review. If you're not using us, you're relying on the law firm's practices and the law firm's organization to be able to expedite that demand out. And I'll tell you just real quickly, we see a lot of demands in the beginning when we have clients work with us that they are getting bills and records and all of the relevant documents, and they're not sending it out until 2 months after the fact.
Right.
That hurts your case.
And that's actually a question I'm going to ask you coming up, but go ahead, finish your thought on that.
Yeah, it hurts your case.
Yep.
It hurts your case substantially. We have plenty of data to support that it's going to hurt your case, and there's a good reason why. If you're trying to say that your client is going to need ongoing care or it's impacting their lifestyle, you can no longer make that case when you're not presenting more facts, because they're going to rely on facts, not just on anecdotes that you said you talked to your client about.
Right.
And if they're not presenting that, and you have less of an opportunity to present that, and you have months in between your last bills and records when you're sending it over.
Right. And what helps with Precedent is it's an AI-based system, right? So it's able to create a timeline. I mean, you might have 1,500 pages of documents, of medical documents, or maybe like 500 pages of medical documents. It integrates with other systems. You could say, hey, like we need to create a demand, and the demand will be there in 24 hours. And so you don't have to have your people going through all that and creating the demand based on, just people shuffling through all this paper, right?
Yeah. So for our clients that we do streaming of documents over to our system, we can alert the law firm that you should send this demand now. So we have early warning systems to be able to tell the law firm, you should go ahead and send this demand based on our summarization that we've come up with.
Wow.
So that the law firm's not necessarily guessing. A lot of law firms use a ratio of medicals to policy limits. It's not a bad metric, but we have much more sophisticated metrics that are more robust than just looking at damages versus limits.
Right. No, that's amazing. And it creates a timeline too, right? So like,
it does.
Yeah. So you have the medical records and the everything, and
yeah. So what's important is, some semblance of a medical chronology within the demand itself, so that you can understand, was there early severity within the case?
Yep.
Because there's good causation to show that if your client treated immediately from the accident, the likelihood of a higher settlement is greater. Secondly, do you have significant gaps in treatment that may require some kind of explanation? So being aware of that while the demand is being created or is in the process of being created, you can start getting an early read on how you can negotiate the case. But we have AI that does this. We're the fastest in the industry to be able to generate demands at the content that is required. Some folks are generating demands fast, but they're not generating with a lot of substantive content. We focus on making sure the content is appropriate for what needs to go into that demand so that you can get the best possible settlement.
And so that's one of the ways Precedent is very efficient. And you see cases from the demand through the representation page to the verifying policy limits. Like, that's a difficult thing. I mean, how does Precedent help you verify policy limits in an insurance policy?
So one of the things that we really focus on is starting with helping the law firm as soon as the client has intake. One of the very first things they're going to want to do is understand if there's coverage for this and how much coverage is for there.
Right.
And you want to try to figure that out in the first 48 hours.
Sure.
And what we see is a lot of law firms, they just get a backlog because maybe they've run a marketing campaign, and they've had a surge of cases come in, and they're just not staffed appropriately to be able to handle that. So as those delays come in, you can have cases that really are not workable because there's no coverage. So we have processes. We have an AI process that reaches out to insurance carriers. We have human in the loop that also confirms information. And we're setting up claims same day. We're verifying policy limits. Verifying policy limits is a hard one. It is anybody that has to do it will tell you that there is statutes in place, and there's about 15 disclosure states in the United States where they are required, but you have to present different types of documentation for them to be able to turn over policy limits. Typically, they will offer verbal limits over the phone, but you really need to see the deck page to be able to understand if those limits are there. But we offer that at the very beginning of customers that work with us so that we take that administrative burden off of their office, be able to handle that with the insurance company and get that information back as fast as possible.
Speaking of customers that work with you, what size law firms are you benefiting right now?
It really is all sizes.
All over the place.
I mean, we have a top 5 firm in the United States that works with us, that we handle their processes from beginning to end. We work with single practitioners. It really varies quite a bit. We can be of assistance to really any size firm.
Okay, and Precedent actually has portals for specific insurance companies, right? Like, tell us about how that works.
We do. That's somewhat of our secret sauce on working with the carriers, so that we've been able to set up specific ways that we can deliver demands with certain information that is not available any other way at this point. And we continue to have conversations with them on how would they like to receive demands, what types of information are they looking for, so that we can expedite the process. And these conversations are ongoing, and it makes a real difference opposed to sending it the old-fashioned way.
Right, and you could send it right from Precedent, correct? Like you can. The demand gets set up, 24 hours later, it's done.
Yep. So the demand lives inside of our system. The drafting process happens inside of our system. There's a workflow through it. So it's, has your kind of pizza tracker so you can see where it is in any given stage. And typically what's going to happen is documents are going to be imported into our system. AI processes are going to run where all of the information that needs to be extracted, medical bills, records, diagnoses, treatments, medical chronology, narrative around that, comes back to a case manager or paralegal that's going to finalize final parts and author various parts. It goes to an approval workflow for an approving attorney. That's who is the approver. The approving attorney can do their edits directly inside of our system, send it back to them in case there's any edits. And this is where we see some workflow breakdown on a lot of law firms, where if you're using a point solution that just generates a demand and they give you a Word document and they ship it, I mean, they're out of the loop at that point.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you have an attorney printing it out and they're redlining it and then handing it back to the paralegal, whoever's writing, and then they have to send it. They have to make the edits. They have to confirm it with the attorney. All of that workflow is happening inside of our system. And then secondly, when the attorney approves it, it's going out. Right then, it's going out. They're going to get confirmation of receipt that it's been confirmed by the insurance carriers received to start those negotiations as fast as possible.
Grant, after all this, don't you want to go to law school?
I don't think I'm suited for that.
I don't know. You're talking like you know a lot about this stuff, I think.
I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great firms.
Yeah.
And a lot of really smart people that also see this as a problem and they want to fix it.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That's like leads right into my next question, which like what opportunities for improvement are there for communication between lawyers and insurance companies? I know we're talking about some of them, demand sent right from Precedent, so it's not being blasted in 100 different places, and it's easier for them to see it, and that might result in a better result. So, what opportunities are there?
So we see the future as a platform where we're the fabric in between the insurance carriers and plaintiff firms, where it's standardized so that you can know right away, instantaneously, whether you have a case where there's a claim already that's been created, whether the claim, what coverage limits are available to that claim, so that there's no waiting game going on. And then secondly, we launched Settlement Accelerator, and Settlement Accelerator is really a game changer for the law firms and the insurance carriers, where all of your settlements, can be EFT'd to your law firm. So today, virtually all law firms, when they're settling these up, are going to receive a check from the insurance carrier. It could come the next day. It could come 6 months from now. It really, really depends. And the firm is just waiting on that. And when the firm gets it, they have to process the check. They have to wait for it to clear. It has to sit in the IOLTA account. They have to be audited on the IOLTA account for all these checks that they've received. It's a very inefficient process. Why are we doing checks? It's the same way as taxes. Insurance carriers don't like sending checks. It costs them about $5 for every check. When they have to overnight a check, it's going to cost them about $30.
Right.
They would like to get out of this process too. Settlement Accelerator is an option that we offer to law firms to be able to get rid of all of their checks coming from the insurance carriers and receive funds as fast as the same day that the release is sent to the insurance carrier. So not waiting on a check to show up, and it can be in your IOLTA account that same day.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's people want their money, they don't want to wait for those settlements. So that's helpful. Grant, how would you say insurance providers view the legal world?
There's a lot of tension and distrust in between these two groups.
Right.
And, for good reason. There's been a lot of situations where personal injury firms have done some things that have been kind of gotcha games for insurance companies, and it's hurt insurance companies. And insurance companies have done some things where they wrongfully denied claims, and they should have paid them much sooner. They should have settled. So each one of these entities, views each other. They can remember these kind of horror stories of a case, and they stick in their mind. And so there's just a great deal of mistrust in between the two. And that's why they really need a third party that is just trying to accelerate the whole process and make it more efficient for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us, and we've talked about precedent. Tell us, say I'm an attorney and I'm like personal injury attorney. I know you service small firms, large firms. You said you have a top 5 big firm, medium firms. But anyway, I'm an attorney. And I have medical documents. I'm just starting to use precedent. Like, take me through how we use it. Like, you have like 100 medical documents and all that. Like, what do we do?
Sure. So we have different ways that we partner with firms. Some are through a full integration with the matter management, where the bills and records and documents that are flagged to be part of the demand can come over automatically. In some other situations, let's just say it's in a non-integrated capacity, you're going to fill out a brief form to just tell us about the demand, and you're going to upload documents, and then there's going to be AI processing that runs. And as quick as 4 hours, that demand can be back in your hands, and it's there for your authoring. So you can edit it, find that the work that we're taking care of in terms of the organization of the demand, extracting all of the bills and records and doing an analysis on those bills and records, putting that back in the hands of the author, is allowing them to, we found productivity levels around 3 demands per case manager, and now they're exceeding 10 demands.
Wow.
And I want to say this because, and I'm passionate about this in terms of the AI hype. A lot of vendors are claiming to use AI, and maybe AI is some part of their story. But under the hood, it's a bunch of people, sometimes offshore, and teams manually producing work under the guise of automation and AI.
Wow.
That's not AI. That's just outsourcing in a disguise. And they're writing the entire demand. I mean, like from start to finish, the attorney didn't write it, case manager didn't write it. And if someone else is drafting your demands from start to finish, your firm is outsourcing a core competency. And,
right.
And over time, that makes your firm less capable, not more scalable. A real AI should be a force multiplier, augmenting your team, making them better, not replacing them. At Precedent, we believe that AI should do the heavy lifting of things so your team can focus on the strategy, the advocacy, and client relationships, and really the art of the demand. But just let's be clear, that is not scaling organizations. That is outsourcing your organization.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I like that, the art of the demand. And you do have a number of integrations available and Precedent, and you can even work with it even if you don't have the integrations. But if you have, like, if one system has all of the documents, it can be read by, and this is just me speaking, like, I don't know about the technology stuff, but like this is, if one system as an attorney has all your medical documents already uploaded in a Precedent, will read that and bring it in, right, and create the demand.
It can.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we have different setups. It just depends on the firm's capabilities with their matter management system. But we can have those streamed over, so it's doing it in near real time, or it can be done at the point that you want to send the demand.
Okay, so you send the demand, and by the way, like, something I thought was really cool that I saw during the demo was the demands even have like a table of contents, right? Is that right? Like, there's a that was pretty sweet. I don't know if I've ever, not that I've looked at like a ton of demands, but I thought that was like a pretty cool function of it.
Yeah, and we spend a lot of time and thought on the organization of the demand so that it's logical and easy to follow, not confusing. And I think sometimes insurance carriers get the sense that the law firm is trying to be confusing when in reality, I don't think that's the case. I just think it's just a sloppy demand.
Right.
And something that seems trivial, but it's not. Within our platform, let's say you delete a bill or record, and now all the pages of your demand are different. All your medical summaries are different. Our technology updates automatically, redoes the page orientation, redoes the page references so that administratively, if you're doing that with a human, it's a lot of human work. And a lot of times it just doesn't get done because it's just too burdensome.
Yeah. So we talked about the demand going out. So the demand goes out. We're still talking about me as the attorney in the office. Demand goes out. Insurance gets it. Then where do they take it from there? Like they look at it, it's much more efficient for the attorney, right? Like from going from a place like Precedent using the tool.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that the law firm is never going to have to do is call the insurance carrier and say, do you have my demand? Are you looking at it? Do you have an offer? Because we're already have those integrations and the reach outs in place. So you can expect the insurance carrier is going to come back much faster and be making the call into the firm, not the firm having to call them.
So does those interactions between settlement and the back and forth, does that take place outside the platform?
It does, but in the future we have a negotiation platform.
I knew it. Look at me figuring that out. That's awesome. All right.
So the negotiation platform is in the works and should be
love
released
it.
later.
I get it, Grant. See, I know what's up. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. All right. So you're gonna have that whole case. Like that whole case is gonna be like streamlined and produced and settled through Precedent. That's awesome. Okay. I love it. No, I'm excited to see that down the road. So you guys are working on something like that.
Yeah, and let me tell you why that's really important to us. As law firm leaders, if your efficiency strategy is just shifting your human work to another human outside, you're just moving the problem.
Right.
You're not solving it. So we really focus on better workflows, better tools, and better data because that allows you to measure these things. And without measurement, it's really difficult to improve. It's not impossible, but knowing how much you've improved, knowing where your bottlenecks are. And right now, most law firms and insurance carriers lack end-to-end visibility. There's no clear data on how long does it take to set up a claim? How long does it take to verify coverage? They have anecdotes and they have gut feel, but it's all that. They can't definitively say that. How long does it take from demand to first offer? I mean, anecdotes, gut feel,
Yeah, right.
Tough thing to say. What documentation leads to faster resolution and better resolution? At Precedent, we're changing all of that. We provide data so the firms can measure their performance, track results, and not just look at anecdotes.
All right. Yeah, no, that's great. I was going to ask you how you improve outcomes of cases. I think that's a good answer for it, though, right there. If you have anything to add about how Precedent improves the outcome of cases, I mean, I know it's a very efficient way of streamlining, but
it's a more credible demand
yep.
that is going over to the insurance carrier. That it's not missing bills and records. It's not illogical. It's stating the facts. It's put together in a very organized fashion with credibility behind it, but not putting a bunch of fluff in there that doesn't support your case.
Right. And how long do you think it takes, like when somebody gets their demand back after they put it through the AI function, how long do you think the attorney takes looking at it just to ensure accuracy or that sort of thing?
It's usually about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
In total. And there's a good reason for that. Like, we're certainly trying to compress time, but we're also conscientious of the fact that the attorney still needs to know the case. The attorney needs to know what's in the demand, needs to understand the facts of the case, because they're going to negotiate it.
Mm-hmm.
And their ability to negotiate it is knowing the case. And so our demand helps the insurance company process, but it also helps the law firm understand the facts of the case as well. So that's has helped in negotiations for the law firms that are using.
AI is like an incredible tool like that. I mean, putting all those documents together in a timeline, chronology, and setting up something that would otherwise take hours upon hours of time, and especially when you're in a contingency-based field where you're not necessarily billing the client for, hourly. That is just like a game changer.
It is. I mean, this would not have been possible 5 years ago. The AI was just not there yet.
Yeah.
And it's been within the last few years that the models have consistently improved.
Yep.
We use an ensemble of different technologies mixed with our proprietary models in order to be able to do this very specifically for law firms. There is a lot of unique things about what is in a demand, so that if you are thinking that you can just go to ChatGPT or do something like that, it will not work.
Right.
It may look good on a few demands, but it's not going to handle the difficult cases.
So you have like a different program. It's different program type of.
We do. We use an ensemble of models. I think in totality, 30 distinct pipelines that run 14 steps of machine learning, and precedent trained models that do consensus analysis across a variety of different. So when I'm saying consensus analysis, you have one model that runs and it's extracting information out of bills. You have another model that's running and it's extracting information out of bills. And you have another model that compares the two result sets to be able to tell if there's a match, and it helps you build probability scores on whether you have a match, whether you have an exception.
Right.
So that's just a basic consensus model, and we have some of those consensus models have 4 models running underneath them to see if they all agree on what the outcome is of the extraction.
That sounds complicated and interesting at the same time.
Well, the thing about that is it's a necessary thing to do for this specific use case.
Sure.
Because you never necessarily know which model is going to be the best until you run through different analysis to be able to see which model is performing the best against. And we are continuously updating models every month, ensuring that the accuracy of what we produce is 100%. I mean, that's what a lot of folks are concerned about, is that it's going to hallucinate or it's going to make information incorrectly. And we have not had any hallucinations in our models. We have a lot of safeguards to prevent that. The thing that it can be really challenging is the way, handwritten doctor notes and sifting through those, and that requires some special technology to deal with the various use cases. If you get a med form where a doctor has scribbled and circled boxes of these are the diagnoses, and they've circled a box here and they've circled a box here, but they put a check mark on this one. Mm-hmm. And then they scratch it out and they put initials to say, that's my scratch, and they move it down with an arrow. You can imagine all of these complexities that come with a human can even get confused on those documents. So it's just a very arduous process that takes a lot of orchestration.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. It's makes sense to me. Most of it. So Grant, about 2 weeks ago, you wrote an article on LinkedIn about paper checks killing efficiency. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay. Do you want to? I know you have something called Settlement Accelerator. Do you want to talk about the paper checks a little bit, like in that article on LinkedIn? You have some good stuff on there. Just a shout out to your LinkedIn page.
Yeah, it's just going back to how antiquated things are. Most people are not writing checks anymore, and rarely do they receive them. But in circumstances they generally don't like because they're waiting on a paper check and they got a deposit. And the younger generation is even less familiar with checks. I mean, I'm not even sure if they know how to fill one out. But the case being, there is an opportunity to get rid of checks for law firms. And with Settlement Accelerator, it does that very thing. So an EFT transaction, it can be done as quickly as the same day the release is signed and put into your IOLTA account, but can 100% eliminate checks. And that's more efficient for your law firm. It's certainly better to get the funds faster. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the insurance carriers want to do the same thing, but they don't want to have to do EFT to 100,000 different PI firms. They want a consolidator where there's a clearinghouse, and that's where we step in.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. That's definitely, checks are definitely a thing of the past. Grant, is there anything else? I know there's so much to talk about with this, and I hope to hear about your precedent negotiator at some point. But like, is there anything like you wanna get in there that we've missed out, we've forgotten tonight, or we've missed out speaking about?
I just would want to reiterate that precedent exists to modernize a broken process and the communication in between law firms and insurance carriers. We do a lot of things to support that, like composing demands and using AI to get claims set up, get policy limits. But this isn't about just outsourcing to a third party to do some component of your law practice. It's about giving legal professionals, claims professionals, the infrastructure they need to collaborate better, move faster, and serve their clients more effectively. Long overdue. We're just getting started on this story. We've been working at it for a couple of years, but we're still at the beginning of this, and there's going to be a revolution.
Yeah.
And then, the last thing I'll say is, if you're not using AI in your law practice at this point, it's going to happen. The AI is so ubiquitous, and at some point, I kind of liken it to the internet first came out in the 1990s, and I'm sure law firms were thinking, well, do I really need to have a web page, or can I just stick with the yellow pages? And we all know it's table stakes now. You have to have a web page. You got to be able to be on the internet. And
if you have a web page, it needs to look pretty too, because like you see some of them that are like from the 90s, like they're still. So yeah, that's true.
But now if you're a law firm and you don't have a web page, you can't exist. And I'm just doing a cautionary tale. If you're a law firm and you're not using AI in the next few years, it's going to be really difficult to compete with those that are.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, 100%, 100%. I don't really have any other questions. Like, is there anything else, Grant, that you wanted to share? Was that?
No, I just appreciate you having me on, and I also run an organization called Claims Tech that it is for thought leadership within the claims community. That we have over 50 members where we meet with claims executives and talk every month about trends that are happening and hear from them directly. And I would, anybody that wants to talk about this, please reach out. Because we're looking within that community to bring legal professionals together that are on the opposing side to have conversations. And as a customer of ours, you get invited into that community to be able to have those conversations. So that, don't just hear it from me, hear it from the folks that are there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, Grant. Grant Little, CEO of Precedent. Thanks so much for coming on the Lawyer Stories podcast. We're looking forward to see Precedent grow, and we appreciate working with you guys, being connected, collaborating, and thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks so much, Benny.
Yeah, you got it. Stay there, Grant. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.